God is good. God is good all the time. I love that type of music. Always reminds you to be humble. That's the only thing I can say about that. It seems like the state and federal government is paying more and more attention to my live feeds because I give out truth that they try to manipulate to their advantage. And then a couple of days later, people find out what I was just talking about. Boom, here's a news article trying to cover up their mess. The biggest problem is we have public officials that are not legitimate. President Joe Biden is not a legitimate president. Governor Northam is a tyrant, isn't a legitimate governor. And the rest of them flunkies, like Fairfax, Floyd, McClellan, Carter, and the rest of the pieces of trash on both sides of the aisle that I call establishment hacks. Because they spend more time talking about things that are not going to win us elections, nor is it going to improve people's lives here in Virginia or in America. They talk about crap that's a distraction from the real problems that's going on with people all across Virginia and America at their dinner table about how are they going to survive in this brutal economy that Joe Biden and the Democrats have created. The fact is, people, make sure you don't vote like this again, period. Now, my discussion is on VEC and IRS tax refunds because the economy has stalled. People are spending less, saving their money because they're unsure what's going to happen next. The economy is not fully open, even though they said take a vaccine, and I still see people with masks all over the place that's been vaccinated, which is stupid. And the lack of common sense that goes on all across Richmond, Virginia, at their state capitol and at the DC swamp. You'll figure that they'll have learned from this to say, you know what, Joe Biden, you just ain't cut out for this. You know, you're very unfit to be president. The economy is going to hell. We got illegals coming across the border at record numbers. How we going to take care of them? We can't take care of our veterans and those who are homeless on the streets, and they are American citizens. This is what happens when you have ignorance of politicians that pay more attention to political gain instead of the people in which they serve. VEC put out another BS article talking about jobless claims was a new low. And factually, no, it wasn't. What ended up happening is people was disqualified for claims and cannot make corrections based off of a automated system created by the Virginia governor and his employees that single-handedly made sure people was taken out the system, and those same people and those same families will be starving and trying to borrow or do whatever they have to do to put food on the table over a mess that they didn't cause. This whole hoax was calculated to destroy any possibility of President Trump being reelected at the expense of every single American out there. Whether you go to a gas pump and look at the prices about how much it has increased since then, that's because there has been a nice extra 39-cent plus gas tax added on to each gallon by Governor Northam. You go to the grocery store, you start seeing prices increase in the grocery store. Well, that's because the minimum wage increase that happened here in Virginia said that, hey, y'all should be able to cover it. The problem is you're paying more in just these two different locations, which is normal necessities. Your car needs gas, your family needs food, and you're paying more. So your minimum wage increase realistically isn't an increase. All it is basically you're making less because you're spending more, even though it looks like on paper that you're making more. that's not the reality, people, because if you was making more, the prices should have stayed the same and gas prices should be lower at this time period. But that's what happens when you vote Democrat. Now, if Republicans want to win in November, they're going to have to start keeping up with modern day events and start looking at the most vulnerable voters who Democrats target every single time. And those are the ones right now struggling. As you look at most of the Virginia unemployment claims, or look at their groups, and you see all of these different families describing what they're going through, talking about how are they going to survive another week. They've been waiting 11 weeks for a payment, some months, and still haven't gotten a word from VEC because you can't get nobody on the phone because it hangs up on you immediately. Others are complaining about the fact last week, which caused that nice little article that make it look like it helps Democrats, but it didn't tell the truth. People was kicked out of getting their benefits because the automated system said if you're typing in, for example, $132.52, you type in 13252. That's it. So those who was typing in $40 was typing in 4000, which of course means basically the nice little period in between should represent $40 because you only typed in 4 with 3 zeros. However, VEC system shows that that person earned $4,000 that week. Even though the system never clarified that if you was typing in only single digits that you, or double digits that you may have earned from outside income, just to type in 40, it said only the example that was given. So what's happening is the Virginia governor, Northam, and the Democrats are finding ways to disqualify people who actually are qualified for benefits. And some of these disqualifications are not only happening for the week in which they are supposed to receive benefits, but they have to start the whole process all over again, which means months to weeks of waiting for hopefully somebody at VEC to get on the time of day to make the corrections. And honestly, do you think they're going to put one person above the other and they got even 15,000? I'm not sure how many more where of claims that hasn't been processed, and some of these claims are from last year. So imagine that part. Now with all of this, when the stimulus happened for, of course, the last round, which was the 1,400, that stalled people from getting their tax refunds. So during this time frame where people are supposed to be spending money and having extra money to, pay off bills or do whatever you normally do with your tax refund, none of those is being processed because they're manually putting them each one in. And if it's an earned tax credit, they got to pull it and do the calculations to make sure the right amount goes in. Even then, they're still not processing the refund for payment. Basically, they are so overworked at the federal level as well as the state level on processing all these claims. That means it's all of this money that people need, they can't get to, and they are no closer to getting it as they was months ago when they actually finished filing their taxes or filing their initial claim to determine whether they are qualified for benefits. Some of these people even got letters saying that they are qualified, or letters that are saying that their refund has been processed, but there's nothing showing up when are they going to get paid. The IRS website is no longer saying, okay, expect your refund at this particular date, because now it's saying basically, hey, you get it whenever we get to it. Under Joe Biden, I want y'all to remember this. When President Trump was president, there was a stimulus done and tax refunds were still issued in a timely fashion, and people was able to get their benefits in a timely fashion. Under Democrats, under Joe Biden and Governor Northam of Virginia and the rest of the Democratic flunkies, look at how the economy has basically went into a downward spiral, and it's going to continue to go this way. And some people are not going to believe it until it hits their home, but it's hitting millions and millions of people's homes every single day. That the reality is that government has no clue of how to fix this mess from this pandemic. They have no clue. And realistically, they are already talking about another stimulus. So even if you send out $500 to $600 again to people, they're not getting their tax refunds because now you put on more of a workload, and they can't even handle the workload that they have right now. And then you have a bunch of unemployment claims because jobs are still being cut. Businesses are still closing. So what numbers that you're seeing when they say, oh, the unemployment rate dropped down to 5.1 or whatever BS that they put out there, no, it just doesn't take into account a lot of people who was qualified for benefits got disqualified because of an automated system that led them to believe that they were doing the right thing. The same thing with the IRS led you to believe by you doing your taxes, you'll get it back in a timely fashion. If all of this keeps going on, there's not going to be a newspaper or a news article to make anybody believe that whatever that they are printing out is reality. And people should second guess the media at this time period, because right now people are shelling out money to put out articles to make people believe it's a brighter day and things are getting back to normal. And the reality is people's lives are getting worse and worse. It's only but so much money you can keep throwing at a problem and putting something on it. Realistically, it's interest that comes down on people when their bills are not being paid on time, their credit scores go down, and a lot of financial hardship continues to happen at no fault of their own. Governor Northam closed down Virginia. South Dakota has been open for God knows when, economy flourishing, COVID under control, and people are getting back to work and getting their benefits. One of the best in the state at processing it, because guess what? They don't have massive unemployment. So, of course, you're not going to have as many claims to process. In Virginia and in liberal states, people are suffering the most, and they keep voting for this because they think that depending on the government, especially during a time like this, your life is in a different crisis. You expect government to have your back. And the thing about the Republicans and conservatives, we already knew the government was full of shit, and we already knew never to put all of our cards on the table and depend on government to fix our problems. This is one of those time frames where if you are unemployed or you're going through these claim processes and vice versa, y'all need to get organized and start having rallies right outside them VEC buildings and start letting the media start telling your story. But guess what? The media is not going to cover any rally at VEC office, no matter how many people's out there. And if they do, they're going to spin it into something that benefits Democrats because they know it's an election year. A lot of y'all families are going through these problems because I read each of the posts, because I do it to make sure I'm humble and recognize the reality of what's going on with Virginia families, which other politicians ain't doing. We got those running for governor right now and running for statewide election. Why wouldn't you start focusing on this? This is millions of voters that want somebody to show leadership from either side. When you're starving and you're struggling, you care about putting food on the table and keeping the roof on your head, and you're going to listen to whoever is paying attention to the same problems that you're having and showing some empathy. The same thing Michelle Obama and the rest kept quoting. Where's the empathy right now? Because if you could read all that stuff that's all down these PUC, PUA, all this different unemployment issues, you're saying all these issues hasn't caught your attention to say fix this problem. They don't want to fix it because they know it's politically beneficial to them. because you're constantly depending on the government. And when you're doing that, you constantly tend to do whatever the government says. Same thing as being masked up. Instead, you're being masked up, your pockets is going empty, you're out of work, and you're losing everything. But guess what? That Democratic government is going to tell you, keep holding out, keep having hope, and hopefully one day we will do something to address your problem. And what does that do for you and your family? Does that hope put food on the table? Does that hope get you back to work? Does that hope get your kids back into school? Does that hope get you your unemployment benefits? Guess what? Or your tax refund. That's your hope. And right now, you would think all of these lawmakers would say, you know what, we need to concentrate on this because these are the people who we told to do all this, and now they're suffering for our decisions. That's why I say I would never shut down Virginia if I don't have a plan for how people are going to provide for their families, provide for their basic bills and necessities, and more. That's what you're supposed to already have an understanding about when you say, what does a lockdown, shutdown do? If this happens, what would be the overall consequences? They knew all of this. They say angry, resentment, people going broke, people starving, people losing their homes, losing their cars, losing their jobs, losing their businesses. All of this will happen. But guess who was the president then when they started this mammoth of disaster to everybody? They didn't care. And the bad thing about this is Republicans have a clear shot at winning in November if they concentrate on this issue. You pay attention to the issues that are affecting people at the dinner table, is more people out of work than they are letting on. Period. Because the numbers are not true numbers. A lot of these numbers look like, oh, somebody went back to work, so they're no longer getting benefits. No, they got disqualified out the system over a human error created by Governor Northam. So it looks like where unemployment is really at 7 to 8%, it will start to look at 6 or 5%, because you're disqualifying people that are qualified for benefits. And these are the same ones who voted Democrat. That's why some may say, hey, you know what, you voted for this and stuff like this and that. But the fact is, if they stay unemployed, this mess with the economy keeps being stalled, it's going to affect those with small business because people cannot shop or go to these businesses because they got to stay at home and save money. So that means another small business destroyed. Then you have the situation of big companies and big corporations. They have to start cutting because they are the ones who hire in mass numbers. So they're going to have to start doing cuts in mass numbers as supply and demand pretty much goes out of control. Because at this time frame, people are spending less. So you don't have to export as many supplies. The demand is not there. So guess what? You have to start making cuts at that time period. That's not the company's fault. That's Joe Biden's fault. The same way he did with the Keystone Pipeline and the rest of these jobs all across America that was there while President Trump was president. Now they are gone. You don't see President Joe Biden being, what they call showing empathy for those workers and their families. When people start depending on these politicians, start paying attention to these politicians concentrating on these things, because when a family is out of work and they're starving, other family members are the first point of contact to try to, buy that family some time because you are family. That means that's a tax increase, whether you want to say it's one or not. That makes for more problems because now you got to take care of your family as well as try to help out another family. That's going to take away from your household. And it doesn't matter how much money you have or how rich you are, because most people are middle class. And if they are millionaires, It's few in number, to be honest with you. But realistically, if you're taking care of two households, which is starting to happen now, or a family has to move into your household because of what's going on with the economy, how does that help you to create wealth and prosperity for your family by taking it away from another family? Because somebody else has to step up, because the government has no chance to even do anything in a timely fashion because they're overloaded with last year's problems. And imagine if your problem happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. You're starting to look at last year, so you're becoming depressed, you're becoming economically unstable, and now you're in the same situation, and your backload may be 6 to 8 months, because who was waiting for 4 months now is waiting for 5 months. That means you started the process of unemployment or processing your taxes. Guess what? You probably in 6 months now, 7 months, or a year. And if this keeps happening, we're going to see massive business closures within 2 months if something doesn't change here. And I mean, where everybody feels it, whether it's the dinner table or your small business or those with any kind of extra savings, is going to start exhausting them unless some changes happen. And that's the truth and the reality of it. Because without these benefits, that was keeping the economy stable. This was keeping people putting money in the economy. But you can't put nothing back in the economy if you have zero. So, yes, people need to go back to work. But what people also need to realize, a lot of these areas that are having the most claims filed has lost most of their small businesses, or big companies are no longer hiring that was doing it in a massive way because they are unsure of the direction of the economy. That's what happens when you have people telling you the truth, and those businesses know the truth. What I'm saying is the truth, and then you have the media publishing a lie so they can keep killing babies and close down the churches and take your guns and create socialism. That's what will happen, and it's happening now. The building blocks of socialism was all there last year. Now they're trying to create it into the new normal. And if people don't start waking up and these politicians don't start concentrating on these issues, what's going to happen is it's not going to be a riot about black and white police officers. It's going to be a riot about politicians versus the American people that's out of work and those who suffered the consequences, because their checks is guaranteed, not the American people whose checks you took away. So this is my special broadcast addressing the issue, but guarantee you, watch for the news, watch for the government, because they all watch my stuff. Let's be honest about it. They pay more attention to me than anybody else, because they're like, he talks about dinner table issues, and these are problems that we don't want amplified, because once one person finds out another person is going through the same struggles and more, you start connecting dots and you start building up numbers and you start doing things to create action and attention to those issues. That's what they don't want. That's why I'm speaking up about it, because exactly, if Republicans play their cards right, if you address this and fix this problem, they'll never vote for a Democrat again. Guarantee you that. And anybody who follows politics is going to say, once again, Merle Rutledge is right, because they're going to look at the person who looked after them when they needed it the most. And right now, Virginia needs leadership the most. Thank you. My name is Merle Rutledge, and I am running for governor of Virginia. You have a great day, and God bless you, and God bless America.